Uzumaki is a horror manga by legendary mangaka Junji Ito. It tells the story of a remote Japanese town that gradually gets overtaken by spirals. Like the shape, spiral. From the Book of Saw, that one. That's what it's about, and every time someone asks you what you're reading, you have to explain that to them. Anyway, it's one of the scariest things I've ever read. Turns out spirals, spookiest shape in nature. Who knew? I often get requests to cover certain media on this channel. Far and away, the most requested work is this. Sorry. You read it backwards. Uzumaki by Junji Ito. I didn't do that on purpose, by the way, but it is worth noting if you are going to read it. You're going to be really confused if you try and read it the way that we read Western comics. For those that don't know, manga is read from right to left. To be honest, I was a little hesitant about this. I thought maybe it had been overhyped a little. I thought maybe it was important in its time and its cultural context, but that it might not have much of an impact on me now. I was dead ass wrong. Uzumaki tells the story of the town of Kurozucho, which is being taken over by some sort of evil presence embodied by spiral shapes. From the start, there's something off about Kurozucho, something nobody can quite put their finger on. Whirlwinds just appear from nowhere and travel down the street. Whirlpools appear in the water all across town. The local plant life is disproportionately spiral-shaped. And it doesn't really feel off to any of the people in the town because it's their town, that's what they're used to. At first, it tells a largely self-contained story about protagonists Kairi and her traumatized boyfriend Suichi discovering a new and terrible manifestation of the spiral curse in their hometown. And I read it while I was in my hometown. I grew up in a town called St. John's on the eastern coast of Canada's easternmost province, Newfoundland. And that's how you pronounce that, by the way, not Newfoundland or Newfoundland or Newfoundland. And there's just something a little bit off about St. John's too, like it's always overcast and like the colors are all muted, like someone turned down the saturation on the planet, and even the time zone is just a little bit off, right? Like it's an hour and a half ahead of EST. At first it feels like it's just a monster of the week type of formula, you know, the heroes discover a new scary spooky spiral, and by the end of the issue the threat is resolved, at least for now. But you have to consider how a spiral actually works. It starts from a point and then it circles and it repeats. Small at first, but then it grows larger and larger in scope, and there's a compounding effect where each new arm of the spiral is larger than the last, forever. To give you a taste of the kind of horror we're dealing with, I'm going to spoil one story from Uzumaki for you, just so you understand the type of thing we're dealing with here. Not gonna spoil the whole thing, just one story, all right? Suichi's mother, for reasons I won't get into right now, has developed an overwhelming phobia of spirals. This phobia becomes so overwhelming that she needs to be institutionalized. She's terrified by a nurse's hair being put in a bun. She shaves her own head to avoid her hair curling. She cuts off her fingerprints when she notices they look like spirals. But she keeps hearing these voices telling her that there's still a spiral somewhere on her body. And Suichi one day glances at a medical diagram and notices that there's a spiral in the cochlea of the inner ear. So he gets the doctor to throw it away, along with any other diagram which shows it, afraid what his mother might do if she finds out that there are spirals in her head. But the voices tell her all about it. Horrifying, grotesque spiral creatures that tell her they're gonna climb inside her head and live in her ears. So she does what anyone would do. She pokes out her cochlea with a pair of scissors, which destroys her sense of balance, putting her in a permanent state of vertigo. Or you could say, the feeling of spiraling downwards forever. Each chapter grows grander and grander in scope and creates greater and greater danger, and the chapter I just described to you is chapter 2 of 19. So you can kind of see, right, like the world spirals, pun absolutely intended, had to get it out of the way, I'm sorry, into utter madness. With the curse overtaking the entire town, there's no more logic or even dramatic resonance to some of the ways that it affects people. It just consumes everything as it grows larger and more encompassing. At first, it all makes perfect sense, right? Like if you're slow, you become a snail. If you're vain, your hair curls take over your mind and demand to be adored forever by everyone, and they can hypnotize people. But then, whirlpools and twisters start to destroy things, and people's bodies become horribly intertwined, or, sometimes beautifully intertwined. And the whole town becomes one continuous labyrinth of rundown shacks spiraling towards the center where something lies in wait. The story does kind of explain why this happens. maintaining a pretty perfect balance of mystery and a satisfactory conclusion. But ultimately, it doesn't matter why Kurozucho, or I don't know, the whole world and all of human civilization is infested with spirals. It's not actually about that, right? Like it's about patterns, about cycles, the ways that we fall into them and how hard it can be to break free. I mean, the story opens with Suichi asking Kairi to leave town and start somewhere new, but she resists. He asks many times throughout the story, and each time she says no, long past the point where, like, fucking get out of here, Kairi. What are you doing? It's spiral monsters everywhere. But she has a life here. She's comfortable in the familiar, and there's nothing really wrong with that. It just happens that in this case, it dooms her because she's stuck in a pattern. And the first few chapters likewise kind of follow a pattern. A new manifestation of the spiral is discovered, it's dealt with, and then ultimately rationalized away again and again. And gradually, these manifestations get larger and more dangerous until they pass a threshold where they become impossible to deal with. There's a heavy focus on obsession, on people's minds becoming fixated on specific patterns of thought until it becomes the only thing they care about. Spirals, infatuations, or eating people that turned into snails. Some people just get stuck in these mental grooves, and it drives them further and further into a single-minded mania. If you choose to read it, you might think at first that I'm stretching for this reading, but trust me, by the end, it will become quite clear that this is what the book is about. But, I don't know. It's a little hard for me to divorce it from the circumstances under which I read it. I bought it for a flight a couple of weeks ago. I was going home for a funeral for a relative who had died suddenly. And it, made me think about the patterns in my life. How I kept returning to this one small town every few years. How I kept having the same conversations with the same family members, feeling the same feelings, and just felt like things change, but they ultimately stay exactly the same. Or the grander pattern, I suppose, of life and death itself, the sinking feeling of knowing everyone you care about will someday be gone, and so will you. And it'll hurt, but then it won't. And then it'll hurt again, and then it won't. Forever. And then new people are born, and then new people die, and it all just keeps going. Forever. The sense that you're just one arm on this continuous spiral of the human experience repeating forever. And I suppose if you look at that from the outside, if that were even possible, it would all seem so inconsequential. Why bother, right? It all returns to where it was, sound and fury signifying nothing. But when you experience it, right? Like, it's a human life. It means everything to you, literally. All of the joys and the most profound experiences you've ever felt, it quite literally could not mean more. But your life is important to you. In Uzumaki, and maybe reality, who can say, the universe and greater powers within it are indifferent to you and your desires. You get swallowed up in patterns you can't conceive of again and again. All of this has happened before. All of it will happen long after you are gone, and you don't matter to any of it. The spiral doesn't care that you have a family, that you're in love, that you're innocent. It doesn't care about anything. If it even has motivations, those motivations are completely inscrutable to the human mind. Uzumaki has some of the most affecting artwork I have ever seen in a comic book, probably the most. There were times when I could feel myself physically resisting turning the page, because I knew whatever would be on the other side would be so horrific. I knew that going in, right? I'd seen some of the more popular splash pages and reveals. But what makes it truly frightening, what I didn't expect, was the utter capricious cruelty of the world within, how people suffer horrible fates for no reason, with no cause that anyone can discern, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it, and then life just goes on. There's an extended storyline about pregnant people feasting on human blood because they've become like mosquitoes, and mosquitoes only drink blood when they're pregnant. It's scarier than it sounds. Like they use little hand drills to poke holes in people to drink their blood. It's scarier in context, believe me. And nothing is done about it. They just stay like that until the babies are born. And then the babies decide, well, they don't like being born. They want to go back inside the womb. So the doctors sew them back in. And it all just happens. And no one is too undeserving of pain. No one is too innocent for the corruption. And anyone who could stop it, anyone who has the institutional power, has become possessed by the spiral curse. Forces in motion you can neither predict, nor affect, nor understand. We're all afraid of the unknown, but Uzumaki makes us afraid of the unknown and the familiar. It reminds us that the barrier between the unknown and the familiar is so paper thin that it might as well not be there at all. How you think you're comfortable and safe until something comes along and reminds you just how little you understand about the world, how something you didn't expect can reframe everything you see. When I got the call that my uncle had died, I didn't cry. I thought I would, but I didn't. I didn't really cry until the funeral. All I could think about was like, okay, what do I do to be useful? I worked on videos so that they would be ready before I flew home. And that was quite an experience, trying to make jokes about baby Oopsie 2 in that state of mind. I cleaned, I tried to use up all of my perishable foods. Kind of absurd. Just concerned about my broccoli. How's that my priority right now? I checked in with some family members to make sure they were okay. None of them really needed my help. And all of that was just normal stuff that I do every day, but I was doing it all through this new lens, this sense of impending catastrophe. But it was a catastrophe that had already happened far away, and I was just waiting for it to reach me, waiting for it to ripple out and hit me. One that I'd been through before, and I know will go through again until I die. And then I'm that catastrophe for someone else, and on it goes. Forever. The capricious universe of Uzumaki felt very real to me at that time. And it was scary. Really scary. And god damn it, I needed that. I could tell you about the uplifting elements of the book, like they're there a little bit. There's a running theme about love and connection making all of the horror bearable, but that wasn't what I needed. I needed the bleakness. I needed something that would tell me, you're right. This pain is pointless. All of it is pointless. But the joy and love you feel is pointless too, and I don't hear you complaining about that. It's all part of it. It's all part of the pattern. It goes low, it goes high, and it goes on and on forever. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have to. It's not for any reason. But you can create one from it if that's important to you, but it all just is. I'm not going to pretend like I was completely messed up, like I was an emotional mess. I mostly kept my shit together as well as one could expect under the circumstances, but I needed this book. Sometimes a work of art just finds you when you need it, or maybe you read into it what you needed from it. I don't know. I don't really care. Read Uzumaki. It's a work of genius. It's genuinely some of the most horrifying stuff I've ever read or seen, and it stuck with me in ways that I did not expect. And to everyone that recommended it, thank you. You did me a favor that you probably didn't expect. Thanks as always to the gibbering masses of flesh over on Patreon who made this video on Uzumaki possible. Special thanks in particular to Ramona Montagani, Masked and Ginger, James Garford, Devin Kaler, Spooky Heather Sylvia, Definitely Todd. And I, Bobby Duke, star of the channel, want to thank Danwich Games, Jay Torney, Schadenfraulein, Lanston Tyne, Sirius Bengal, Rowan Everly, Cato Moore, Carpad, Josh Moniz, Trevor Collins, Hyla Tracy, Louisa Prito, and Jesse. All of yous is also the star of the channel alongside me, Bobby Duke, star of the channel. If any of yous out there watching want to support Scaredy Cats, go on over to patreon.com/scaredycats. Or don't, leave a like on the video, what do I care?